Hi there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 2 of Price Check, the series where I try and pass on some of my economic knowledge by throwing a stash tab full of loot in front of you all, IDing it, and then going over what's worth it and what isn't. Most of it isn't. Sorry to spoil it this early on in the video, but most of it isn't. Now, I got a lot of great feedback from my first episode, and some of that was to keep the intro short, so we're going to get right down to it. Let me grab some of this gear and we'll start IDing and pricing it accordingly. I did try and pick up a wider range of items this time around. That was another piece of criticism which I've attempted to take to heart moving forward, because not everybody has the same looting habits that I do, obviously. Especially newer players and more intermediate players who this series is going to be aimed at. Let's bless all of these with the touch of the wisdom scroll, and we'll see whether we've got anything worth working with here in this batch. As I mentioned at the start, likely not. The majority of the loot that you pick up is not going to be worth much, like this belt, which has nothing really to speak of. The reduced flash charges uses mod is potentially quite good on another belt that maybe had some better stuff to go along with it, but plus 3 flat energy shield is laughable, 55 armor is equally laughable, and while 23 chaos res is relatively high up there for chaos resistance rolls, not super valuable in a life-based belt. This doesn't have any redeeming features. That flat fizz roll is pretty good. Another piece of feedback that I got was that I don't spend enough time on each individual piece of gear, so in the interest of addressing that criticism, I will be spending a little bit of time on each piece of gear and pointing out things that may have made it valuable if it had only tried a little harder. But sadly, it seems like we've got the slower bunch of gear here tonight. Hopefully we'll find a diamond in the rough. Perhaps a diamond ring in the rough. You never know, though I don't think there's one in my inventory, so that joke doesn't really land. One way or another, though, I will be putting timestamps in the description of any better pieces of gear that I get as I edit through this video. So, if you're just here for the good bits, the juiciest pieces of economic meat, then you can just go to the description, skip through to those, and see exactly why I feel certain items have any value. If you don't see any timestamps in the description, it means that I didn't make any money, and I feel kind of sad about that. But one way or another, let's keep going. Decent flat fizz, nothing else really worthwhile. Crit multi is actually decent, is one of the better damage mods you can get on jewels, because crit multi is hard to obtain in a lot of other places in the game. You can't really get it to effectively out of the passive tree. You can't really get it to effectively out of gear. You can get it in both of these places, but it just simply doesn't come in large values. So finding it anywhere at all is super good. However, the other stats in this jewel don't really synergize very well. There's no life, there's no ES, it's not worth it. 42 strength is a high roll, 324 accuracy is okay. This is an example of a ring that might have sold on day 1, 2, or even just week 1 or 2 of the league. A high stat roll, some amount of life. It's a stat roll that even synergizes with life because strength turns into life, accuracy, and a relevant damage roll. This will not sell as far as we are into the league now, but maybe earlier on it could have. For between 3 and 5C is what I would price that at. Only early on in a league, though. This ring's got some interesting stuff going on. High stats. These prismatic rings, by the way, I got as part of a Nemesis League stone that caused prismatic rings to drop. So that's why I'm sitting on a lot of them. Cold damage to the lightning damage is relevant in the current meta, but the ES value is low, and there's not really much else to save it. Mana regen, not very useful. Cold damage, not very useful. Lightning res is good, but not super good. I don't know why I have a black sun crest, but actually we'll check later on to see whether or not these rolls are any good. If memory serves, I don't think they are, but that'll give us an opportunity to price check a unique, and that's pretty nice. No ES mods. You basically need good ES for a spirit shield to be worth something. Any build that wants really good damage out of its offhand, any spellcasting build that's maybe using a dagger or wand in its main hand and wants really good damage out of its offhand is likely going to be going towards certain uniques, things like maybe Breath of the Council for a chaos damage build, just as an example. So what you want are defensive stats, mainly on titanium spirit shields, with spell damage being a great value add, as I've mentioned before. But you need the ES base for it to be worth anything. Good life roll, good ES roll, but nothing else to speak of. Just nothing, really. High strength, I suppose, but nothing good. High strength again, but nothing good. Nothing good. Nothing good. High dex. Like, a single high stat does not a good ring make, and actually, I don't want to get more prismatic rings, so what we're going to do is just going to accept that and keep going. I'd rather get the alt and alch shards out of these. Attack speed is actually a really good modifier on rings. Again, attack speed doesn't have a ton of sources. You can get it out of the tree, and you can get it out of a lot of ascendancy nodes and things like that. But other than that, there's only a few places you can actually get it on gear. So a build that really needs a lot of attack speed or something like that could be looking for it on a ring, but otherwise it's not very solid. Nothing to speak of. Nothing to speak of. I think we already went over those. If you sell 5 of the same item base, by the way, that are all rare, you will get rewarded with a random rare of that same item base, but I don't actually want those right now. We're going to AUG this. Lightning damage is in meta at the moment. If that rolls energy shield, then we regal it and we potentially get a 3rd good stat and we made some money. Otherwise, we just burned an AUG and that's really not even money. That is absolute trash. This is an example of the one of the worst items you could possibly try to sell. There's nothing redeeming about this ring. A lot of stats, but super low life. Honestly, that would be better without a life roll. This ring could have been decent if it had higher flat fizz and no life roll. Because the life roll is taking up space that I think energy shield and life are both prefixes. So it's taking up space that an ES mod could have had, or even a life mod if someone wanted to craft life on there, because crafted life would be better than that garbage +5. Nothing of note. I suppose decent armor. This guy wants to buy a ring. Come on down, Mr. Pioneer. You guys get to see how the sale works. Which one was he looking for? Rapture coils. This is an example of a ring that I'm typing that in chat, aren't I? That did actually sell. And what do you have? You have life, you have some rarity, and you have some resistances. So I'm imagining the ES is not actually a factor in this ring. The mana could be, depending on the build, but probably isn't. So it's just a ring with some life, rarity, and resists. Pretty basic. This would actually sell for a lot more than 1C early on in the league, but this late, it's not going to go for very much. And while we're here, let's hog that. Strength and dex. That's not what I'm looking for. It's worth the hog, though. 45 dex is a decently high roll, but there's nothing else on here. That's normally... Early on in the league, I wouldn't risk a regal on an item like this. I only regal jewels that have life or ES early on in the league. But crit multi is really good, especially more general crit multi. So not crit multi with a specific type of weapon, but just melee crit multi. And then fizz damage with one-handed melee weapons, I suppose, does narrow it down a bit. But we'll see. We might roll a 3rd good stat here. Block chance while dual wielding, it's probably not worth much, but I'm going to throw it up for 5 chaos. Somebody might still be looking for this, just for the high crit multi roll. And some synergistic damage. Move speed, kind of low. Nothing else really to speak of. Nothing good on that. Close. This is close to being good. Again, it has the right kind of rolls, but it doesn't have high enough values. If that had had higher values, I would have volled that, hoping for +1 endurance charge. Imbued wand, so we're looking for physical damage modifiers, so the cast speed isn't really that good, the crit strike for spells isn't that good. On an imbued wand base, because this is the highest attacks per second and the highest PDPS of any physical based wand in the game. So imbued wands, you're looking for crit multi, like not global crit multi, but local crit multi to increase the crit multi of the wand. You're looking for percentage fizz, you're looking for flat fizz, you're looking for attack speed. And we don't have any of that. 20% move speed is good, but it doesn't have any ES. So if that mana roll had been an ES roll instead, that would be really good. That has ES, but not very high, and it also doesn't have move speed, so 16 life. It's not very useful. I'm gonna go a little bit quicker as I get through the video, so I'm not just repeating myself over and over again. If I see another good point to hit, then I'll bring it up. Attack speed with wands, cast speed, and minion damage. That is not very synergistic now, is it? That's an interesting one. Again, another example of something that might have sold early in a league, particularly to a build that could actually use the flat mana. So this could potentially sell even now for a chaos or two to a build like a Guardian build that can use the mana, it can use the ES, it can use the resistances, can even use the life regen if it's a Zealot's Oath Guardian build. So it's actually not a terrible ring. We'll hold on to that. We'll put it up for 2C. Whereas this one is a pretty terrible ring. That mana, ES and resist rolls are both really low. So I'll put that up for 2C to start. So we got one decent one out of it. Oh, hey. Another sale. Luminous Essence Cobalt Jewel. That's up for 20C. Essence. What do you have? You've got 3 cast speed modifiers and area damage. God dang, that is a nice looking jewel. Very specific though, since it's with cold skills. I imagine this guy's going some sort of freezing pulse or I don't even know what else. Whispering Ice build? No, you're not wearing a shield with Whispering Ice. Freezing pulse is probably what this synergizes with best, but there you go, 20C. It's all yours, my man. Honestly, probably worth more than that to the right buyer, but the right buyer probably doesn't exist very frequently, and that's a bad way to put it, but we will get to this later. Let's ID a bunch more crap, which was the working title for this series. Now we're getting into some of the gear that I don't normally pick up, things like demon daggers and quivers and one-handers and helmets and such, but still can be useful for teaching. That is a horrifyingly bad belt. Another imbued wand, another failure. Honestly, you're not going to get a lot of successes out of imbued wands. The reason why I picked them up is because when you do get a success, it'll be really, really, really valuable. Because there's very few people actually picking them up, and there is a voracious market out there for high physical damage wands. This dagger has nothing going for it. What you're looking for in a dagger is usually spell damage, spell crit, attack speed, spell crit multi, things like that. This has a few good mods. You want weapon elemental damage, you want crit strike chance on spike point arrow quivers, but you also want life. Usually you want resistances, that sort of thing. If that ES roll were higher, this could be worth something. But as such, it being an unset ring drops its value. Not a lot of people are looking for unset rings, unless they're looking for unset rings with plus to level of socketed gems for specific builds. That is horrible garbage. That's a collection of every bad roll that you can get. These are all like the worst rolls in the game. I mean, I've mentioned it a few times. We've had some really garbage builds, but this one takes the goddamn cake. Look at that thing. Oh god, it's the ugliest bell at the ball. Very close to being the ugliest one. But this one showed you up, buddy. Are they both called Foebind? Oh no, that one's called Honor Trap. The thing was just getting in the way. 25% attack speed is really good. That's a high roll, from what I'm aware. I don't price a lot of one-handers. Harpy Rapier is not a great base though, and it doesn't have anything else, really. You don't want resistances on a weapon, generally speaking, unless it's already really good. 1 to 6 lightning damage is pitiful, and the crit strike chance roll is not very good. Prophecy Wand, you're looking for spell wand effects. So what you're looking for, that was a bad way to phrase that, but what you're looking for is cast speed, spell damage. That's usually about it. Those are the biggest things. Critical strike chance for spells. This has got one of those. Elemental damage mods can be good too, so like fire damage, lightning damage, cold damage, those can all be nice. But this does not have... Cast speed's probably the most important out of all of those. If you don't have cast speed on your spell damage wand, it's probably not worth selling. Oh, this was closer than a lot of the other ones we've seen. It's got a % increased fizz mod, but that's a really low roll. Sadly, it's got a good cast speed. I wish that good cast speed were on our prophecy wand instead, but it's got a crit multi. Ugh. It tried, it really did. Those are horrible. That's pretty horrible as well. Yep, garbage. Garbage, and more garbage. For helmets, I don't actually, neither of these really tried that hard, did they? But what you're looking for is accuracy. You're looking for high life rolls on anything that isn't an ES base. So on a Hubris Circlet, you're looking for high ES rolls, obviously. And the easiest way, by the way, with the Hubris Circlet is just check the ES total rather than looking at the rolls. You want to have, like, this late in the league, you want to have, like, a minimum of 350 ES for it to be even sellable. Any more than that is awesome, and, like, a really good GG Hubris is going to have more than 400 minimum. But, I digress. We'll move on to the next pile of loot. Sadly, no winners in that one, but that's okay. Let's get this last little bit. Yes, and in the interest of brevity, we will only be doing 1 page worth per episode. I mentioned that last time, but I feel it's worth reiterating. All right, let's see if we got any winners here. That belt is pretty bad. On a Spirit Shield, again, what I mentioned earlier, you're looking for high ES values before anything else, and sadly this doesn't have a flat ES roll, and the percentage is rather low. No life means no good. Decent life and dex, but everything else is a giant brick. Ooh, that's interesting. I think that's a high percentage roll. I mean, the problem is there's no resist. There's nothing else going for this, but it does have a decently high flat and a decently high percentage. But hybrid gloves don't really sell, honestly. Even if these were really good, it would be difficult to move them because just hybrid gloves don't sell very often. No life, no attack speed, nothing like that. Again, no life. Low ES and no movement speed. And oh boy, you're bad. No, oh god, you're horrible. Okay. All right, well, that's the tab exhausted. We're going to go ahead and price check this Black Suncrest. I'm already pretty certain that it's not worth anything, but just as an example of one of the quickest and easiest ways you can price check a unique item, my Poe.trade window open for you all over here. With the power of movie magic, we'll transition. Look at that. And what you can do is you can hover over the item in game. You can Control-C. And where is the button? I almost never use this feature because there it is, import item data. You can just paste that in. Just paste that right in, import. That should do it. Hey, 42 results. I did not do this right. What is going on? It imported all the stats. It's supposed to import that it's a unique item. Oh, that's so funny. Well, it doesn't work the way it used to, as far as I'm aware. That is really interesting. All right, well, Octavian can make mistakes too. The other easy way to do it is literally just to search the name of the item and then sort by the relevant stats, because you can click through here. You can sort by probably int is what's most valuable right now because of Howa, so it goes up to 15%. Ours is at 9%. None of the other stats are very high. This isn't worth anything. A 15% int one is worth 40 chaos, though. It seems like minimum. Dang, these are going up. These prices are very variable, but that one's been up for 4 minutes at 30C, 3 days at 55, 23 hours at 50. So yeah, it looks like if you get a really well-rolled intelligence one, you can make some decent money off it. So it was worth the time to check. But turns out in the end, it's just going to be sold in Navali. 16 elk shards, that's what it was worth. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this second episode here. There are going to be many more to come. I intend on releasing these bi-weekly. Again, if you've got any suggestions for how I can improve this series, please do just type them up down there in the chat box, down below the video, the comment section, as I do read and try to respond to every comment that seems to be looking for a response. Also, if you've got any items that you would like price checked specifically, go ahead and leave an Imgur link with a screenshot of the item in the description, in the comments below, and I'll get to it as soon as I've got the time. My name is Octavian. This has been Price Check, episode number 2. 3 should be coming out fairly shortly, and if you want to keep updated to that, then just click subscribe to the channel. It's been fun hanging out with you guys. Y'all have a good one.